Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm Beth Atkinson, and I am all about connecting people to people and people to resources and ideas. I'm a Vistage Master Chair. I lead a number of CEO peer advisory groups in Orange County. One topic that comes up often is how to execute on strategy, how to create an environment of execution and maintain it. I'm thrilled to have as our guest on Connect, Dan Barnett. Dan Barnett has headed companies for some of the world's leading corporations, including Nestle, Pillsbury, Weyerhaeuser, and Constellation Brands, as well as running smaller private companies. He is currently the CEO and owner of the Primavera Company, a private equity company focused on real estate, regional banks, and restaurants. Dan has a global consulting and speaking business and serves on the board of KTGY, a global architectural company. Dan has headed large organizations for many years where he learned a lot about leadership, but literally half of his experience has been with companies from 4 million to 35 million, where he says he's learned about the real world. I think the concepts you will learn today will apply to your business no matter what size or industry you are in. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We welcome Dan to Connect. Dan, as a Vistage chair, a common question I hear from the CEOs and executives I work with is, what is my role as a leader to make good execution happen?
Well, I think that all good performance starts with clear direction. I think the number one thing that a leader wants to do is provide clear direction for their organization. I encourage visions that are clear, specific, and measurable. Because if you can measure progress towards it, you're describing the future in a way people can understand what it is. Like, we're here today, we're going to be here in the future, and you've made it measurable, all right? So that's really good direction for people that can understand what they need to do to get you where you want to go, because it's clear like that. And always make sure that you're telling people what's in it for them. All right, so they have a reason to want to commit themselves to it, and how you make the world a better place. That's important aspects to it. But the real core thing here for your people to help them execute better is a clear, specific, and measurable vision. So I always would start with that. I think it's also important to know what your core strategies are. Right? I call this your make or break. What's the one thing that must be done extraordinarily well throughout your organization for you to achieve your vision? Think about the amount of focus that gives your organization. And you're bringing to them this as a leader. All right? This is where we're going. We can measure our progress towards it. These are really the core strategy or strategies that we really need to do in this company, and the amount of focus that allows your people to have as they begin to figure this all out.
I love what you're saying. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Saying, Dan, because so often CEOs have, here's the 16 things we have to do. And I love the make or break, because it's like, wow, that says it all. We've got to do this, right?
Yes. I mean, it focuses things down to the most important thing, because there are so many things we have to do, in any company, all right? But is it clear to people what the most important thing is? And I think the more direction you give people so that they know what that is, the better it's going to be. I always encourage leaders, as part of the leadership of execution, to lead that vision yourself. That's where you're really trying to get as a company, all right? And because the reality is, if you can bring this to your company with some passion and some inspiration, and I don't mean this kind of charismatic kind of passion, because you hardly ever see that. I'm talking about you believe in it yourself. It matters to you. You're inspired by it. Because if you're inspired by yourself, it spreads to everyone around you. That's the way you get other people inspired about things, because you're inspired by it.
It's contagious, right?
It's contagious. And that's where you want to go with this, because if you bring that to your organization as a leader, and it's clear that you know where you're going, all right, and you know what's in it for your people, and you have focus on your core strategies, it provides a tremendous amount of effort within the organization, because people can get committed to it themselves because they know how committed you are. It's contagious, as you're saying.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's just another really important aspect to, leading a good in inspiration, getting good execution in a company, through leadership, how you bring it to your people and how important it is to you, and making it clear what's important to them at the same time.
Dan, I know that execution is really important. I mean, it's all about execution, right? And yet it's hard to keep the organization focused on, the things that matter day in and day out. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I call those alligators and squirrels.
Oh my God.
When I was at Vistage, we did a survey of all of our members around the world, and we asked them a question. We said, what are the biggest pains and challenges that you have leading an organization? Top three in every single market around the world was saying focus on strategic things and not being distracted by these urgent alligators and squirrels that we end up dealing with every single day. you
Mm,
know and so how do you deal with it, the fact that you do have these alligators and squirrels jumping up at you every single day? All right. And there's a really key important way to begin to focus on how to deal with this. And the key is, try to identify, once you know what that direction is that we just talked about, where you're going, what your core strategies are,
mhm,
try to identify the activities that will cause that to happen in your company, so that your vision and your core strategy happen. What do people actually do? Now, involve your people in this. I mean, I think in terms of leadership, I'm talking about leading, not doing.
mm. Big,
So
big differentiation there,
there's
right?
a big differentiation between doing it and leading it. So leading is when you give them the direction, all
Mhm,
right, and you let them know what's in it for them,
mhm,
and you let them know why this is important, and you work through the core strategy, but the strategies. But the more you actually involve your people in
mm,
developing these,
mhm,
all right, so that they understand it, they get it, all right, then the more committed they're going to be to executing it well, because they understand it. They help build it, as opposed to you just dropping that on them. But involve your people, especially your leadership team, in coming up with these things. And as you do that, take it down to the next level. If you want to start to deal with the alligators and squirrels in an effective way, get really clear about the activities that you have to do that cause the important things that happen in your company. Because once you do that, you can put those activities into a dashboard and you can track them. You can make sure that they're happening in your organization the way that they need to.
mm. Yeah, that sounds great because, so oftentimes I say, what are the top three things you need to accomplish today? It's kind of like, the make or break, right? And they're doing all this other stuff and they're not focused on the things that they really need to do. And I also love what you said is have the leadership team have authorship, because then they're owning the strategy as well and the execution. So how do you stay agile and nimble and be able to to pivot while you're executing important strategies, because things happen, right? Things always happen.
Well, things will get off track. I can kind of guarantee you that. How many people out there would say, I'm always on track?
Mm,
We never get off track. I've never met anybody that could say things never get off track.
yeah.
Things get off track. All right. So, how do you stay agile and nimble? How do you pivot when you want to pivot? I say, take these activities that you've developed and you put into a dashboard and get your team together weekly and
Mm,
see how things are going for those activities. And when things get off track, which they always do, and there's nothing wrong with getting off track, but the key is that you quickly get back on track. You are not going to go in a straight line to your vision or your strategies. It's not going to happen that way. Everything will be changing. The economy, the environment, your competitors, your organization, things will be changing. You're going to have to make course corrections. So, be looking at when things get off track, because when they get off track, something has changed. And that's when you got to pivot. That's when you've got to be agile and nimble and come up with a solution. So when you get together as a team looking over this stuff and you see things getting off track, you want to immediately begin to problem solve and get them back on track. I call these rapid action teams.
Great.
So
I
it's,
was just going to ask you, how
yes,
long are those rapid action team meetings? Can you explore a little bit what that looks like?
they're short. They're like 30 minutes.
Oh,
You know
great.
why? You're doing this every week. You don't have to solve every single problem.
Okay.
Yeah, solve one problem, maybe two. You can solve
Okay.
a different problem next week because you're doing this every week. All right.
Hmm.
So keep them short, and it's a problem solving meeting. So people are coming up with ideas. You want to get your team together and have them work together to come up with solutions because these are the most important things. People want to make these things happen. And if somebody gets off track, we want to work together to help them get back on track.
Yeah.
You want everybody on the same page, committed to these things. And then when things do get off track, which they always do, and there's nothing wrong with that, work together to help get back on track. So you throw out your ideas, well, why don't we, have you ever thought about trying this? Or what about this? What are that,
Hmm.
Now, I'm in that meeting along with everybody else, but I'm not going to tell that person who's reporting out on that activity because you want to get people together. These dashboard meetings, they're going to be reporting out on the important things. But when things get off track, we come up with some new ideas. I am not going to tell them what to do. That's their decision,
Hmm.
So they would go, hey, I like that idea. I'm going to give that a shot. And they go away and they come back the following week and they tell everybody whether or not they're beginning to get traction on the thing that was getting off track.
So
All
they
right.
take ownership and they have the responsibility versus putting that monkey on your back or on the leader's back. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Love
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't want that monkey. What you want them, to own it because they will come up with better solutions than you would half the time.
that. Hmm.
All right. So you want to let them try things, come up with solutions, do something new and different. This is about new things. It's about you're thinking about innovation, fresh thinking, coming up with new ideas and trying new things is what this meeting is all about. You don't want to go back and do the same thing. You want to try something new and different because things have changed. So
Right.
it's time to do something new and different at that point in time.
So, that make or break strategy.
Yes.
Um, in organizations, I find that we have sometimes there's silos. There's the marketing, there's the sales, there's the operations, and they have you know, their focus. So how do you keep the whole team working together to execute on the vision, the make or break it?
Yeah. So everybody has a role.
Hmm.
Right? So major things like your vision, not one department does that.
Hmm.
Everybody has to be working together to actually cause that thing to happen. All right.
Hmm.
And it's the same with your core strategy. It might be in a particular area, this core strategy, but we can all work together to get things back on track. I've been in meetings where, let's just say the issue was a sales issue. All right. And I would have my CFO in that meeting because I'm going to have my core team together to be looking at these things. And the salespeople don't know what to do because they really need more resources, but they don't have the money to do that. They've spent their budget.
Right,
And I've
right.
had the CFO go, I know where the money is. Hire those people. So they're working together. I've been in situations where, the manufacturing department says, you know what the problem that you're really having? Uh, we're not really good at delivering on time. You
Mhm.
know, we tend to ship late or we run into problems and stuff like that. But if I fix that, you're not going to have the kind of problems you're having right now in your area
Mm.
because everybody knows these are the really important things. And again, these are short meetings, a half an hour meeting to do the rapid action team and solve problems. And then another half an hour that's not about solving the problems. It's simply about reporting out on how are we doing with the important things that have to happen in this company. So that way of taking the good direction that you've been developing up front, and you've involved your people in that, all
Mhm.
right? And how do you actually make it happen? You make it happen with a couple of meetings.
Mhm.
And you will find yourself executing incredibly well in an organization if you do that.
Well, it's when you were talking, it reminds me of, a great sports team. The make or
Yeah.
break is to win the whatever, right? The pennant or the this or the world championship. And they have their own roles, but
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
all focused on the make or break it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, sports are always a good analogy for business because the truth is you have to work together,
Hmm.
on a team. No one person does it. It's a team.
Yeah.
And businesses are a team. I call them a tribe of people,
I like that.
you know.
Attractive
But
people.
yeah,
And get
because
rid of the squirrels and alligators, right?
yeah, exactly. And tribes, what they do is they cover each other's back. They're
Mm,
looking out for each other. Everybody wants to get somewhere that's important. And as the leader, you believe in it. You've made it important, all right?
right.
And that will spread in your organization, and now people will work together, to get there.
Yeah. I love that. And people can learn more from about you and your make or break on your website, makeorbreak.net. Dan, thank you for joining us today on Connect. And we look forward to our next episode of Make or Break.
Thank you, Beth, for inviting me. It's great to be here.